Good afternoon. From the KUOW newsroom, this is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning with a roundup of today's top stories. It's Tuesday, March 3rd. Starting with King County has banned new or expanded detention facilities. The council voted today to impose a one-year emergency moratorium on detention centers. This comes as the federal government looks to build more immigration lockups across the country. Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda introduced the measure and described these jails as destructive to the community.
The sheer presence of these detention facilities, the increased presence of ICE agents, they carry serious consequences for the health and safety of the surrounding neighbors.
Council members Reagan Dunn and Pete von Reichbauer voted against the ban. The emergency measure only applies to unincorporated King County. Seattle is working on a similar ban, and other nearby cities have already passed one, including SeaTac, Tukwila, and Renton. In a statement to KUOW, an ICE spokesperson wrote, "They have no new detention facilities to announce in Washington state." We continue to watch the situation unfolding between the U.S. and Iran. And for a second day, people are trying to get Seattle Storm basketball guard Tiffany Mitchell and a number of other WNBA players out of Israel. They play in the Israeli Women's Basketball Premier League and were in the country when Iran launched counterstrikes on Israel. Mitchell's former college basketball coach, Dawn Staley, says they're working on a plan to bring the players home. The Storm start their season next month. Staying with federal issues, Washington's two U.S. senators have co-sponsored a bill that requires the money collected by the president's tariffs to be refunded. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled last month the president violated federal law when he imposed sweeping tariffs across the globe. Senators Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell have called for the White House to detail how they plan to return the money and a list of importers that paid the tax. Time's ticking in Olympia, and there's a showdown over taxing millionaires. Representatives from Washington's tech industry are lining up on both sides of the debate over a proposed tax on incomes over $1 million. KUOW's state government reporter, Sarah Mises-Tan, explains.
In a letter to Governor Bob Ferguson this week, a handful of founders, engineers, and executives say the tax would stifle tech talent and innovation in the region. Pedro Domingos researches machine learning at UW and signed the letter.
Think of Amazon, right? The next Amazon isn't going to come here.
On the other side, Jay Blumenthal, one of the designers of Microsoft Excel, say the fears are just overblown. He says in states that have implemented similar income taxes, there hasn't been a drop in startups or an exodus of innovators.
We have data on that from Massachusetts that did a similar thing. Basically, nobody left the state.
Last week, the House cut a tax break for big businesses in the bill while rolling back a sales tax on technology services. Governor Ferguson said the bill still has a long way to go. In Olympia, I'm Sarah Mises-Tan.
More bills are likely dead for the year after yesterday brought another procedural deadline. Spokane Public Radio's Owen Henderson has this report on what's dead.
The Washington Board of Natural Resources won't be expanding. One bill would have added tribal representation to the group that decides on state logging sales and land management policies. It passed the Senate, but didn't make it out of a House committee. A pair of bills, backed by the state insurance commissioner, that deal with property insurance and wildfires also burned out in the House. One would have barred insurers from using wildfire risk as a disqualifying factor for properties if they met standards for fire preparedness. The other would have required insurers to give policyholders their wildfire risk score if it affected their coverage, and forced companies to share information about their wildfire risk models with the commissioner's office. The legislative session ends March 12th. I'm Owen Henderson reporting.
Also, legalization of more neighborhood cafes and corner stores looks like it will not happen this year in Washington state. House Bill 1175 passed the House, but despite bipartisan support, it failed to gain any traction in the Senate. The bill would have opened possibilities for small shops and eateries to pop up next door to homes within residential neighborhoods. In environment news today, Seattle will defend its comprehensive plan in the State Court of Appeals tomorrow. Activists say the environmental review done on its 20-year development plan fails to take endangered species like the southern resident orcas into account. More from KNKX environment reporter Bellamy Palethorpe.
The One Seattle plan aims to meet the city's housing crisis by increasing density and more than doubling development capacity. Jennifer Godfrey is a symphony player who noticed that the environmental impact statement for the plan said the only endangered species known or expected to use Seattle as habitat are fish.
That statement's incorrect. So I felt that was a clue that something was wrong with the EIS. I also attended a lot of meetings and I asked them, could you please correct this? And the response was no.
Scientists and environmental groups have joined Godfrey in arguing that the loss of mature trees and urban canopy, along with the increase in pavement because of increased development, will lead to more polluted stormwater runoff, and that could pose a risk to the endangered southern resident orcas offshore. The city said in a statement that its EIS is rigorous and that its plan will enable growth while safeguarding the city's waterways and public spaces. I'm Bellamy Palethorpe reporting.
The state of Washington's petitioning a judge to keep a recently shuttered coal plant closed. The Trump administration ordered the TransAlta plant in Centralia to reopen late last year after the state forced it to stop operations. Today, Washington Attorney General Nick Brown petitioned a federal appeals court to stop the feds from keeping it in operation. The Energy Department says the Trump administration's committed to keeping coal plants online as demand for electricity rises. A few short notes tonight. Light rail has been suspended all day on part of the 2 line in Bellevue due to a power issue. Sound Transit says trains stopped after 4 a.m. between South Bellevue Station and Spring District Station. The cause has not been identified, but crews are looking at the overhead contact system as the culprit. And one more note, BC beat us to it. British Columbia will officially move to year-round daylight saving time this coming Sunday. That's also in Washington, and nearly every U.S. state sets their clocks ahead. But the change also means that when Washington falls back this November, we'll be an hour behind British Columbia. Now, our feature story for today. Members of the Seattle area Iranian American community gathered at Seattle's City Hall on Sunday. They held a vigil for Iranians who've been killed by that country's ruling regime. And as KUOW's Libby Dankman reports, they're also just starting to process the start of war.
We watch as a woman dressed in black descends a staircase surrounded by electric candles. She sways and spins using a flowing red scarf and the line of her body to show pain and strength. Independent artist Parmita Ziai says dance lets her express a depth of emotion that can be hard to put into words.
Today, I wanted to share that pain and grief that I have personally been feeling, but I also know everyone collectively is feeling, and for a moment, maybe share a moment of healing together.
That feeling of solidarity was echoed by Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, who joined the gathering.
What we share here with the people of Iran is wanting to be able to live a dignified life and to have a say in how we are governed and to be able to determine our own destiny collectively, right? And that's what, at a really basic level, I think those protests were about, and something that I think we can all resonate with here.
Every year, the Seattle Isfahan Sister City Advocacy Organization holds a Nowruz, or Persian New Year, celebration at City Hall. This year, they decided to change the gathering into a vigil. In the lobby of City Hall, paintings and photographs commemorate the suffering of families and friends whose loved ones went to the streets in cities across Iran in January to speak out against a repressive regime and never came home.
My whole family are back in Iran. So when there is an event with the magnitude of this, you're every day thinking what's happening to them.
Marjan lives in Issaquah. She didn't want to share her full name out of fear for her family members in Iran. She created a slideshow of names, faces, and stories of the confirmed dead.
You look at these pictures, there are kids between 14 and youth of like 23, 24. And the capacity of the sorrow is unbelievable. We need to know their stories and tell their stories, because the truth is, if you look around the world, it's happening everywhere. And if we don't tell the stories, the next future may repeat it again.
Many Iranians in the Seattle area and beyond have celebrated the news of the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the dictator who assumed rule in Iran in 1989. Still, it's an uneasy feeling.
He was an evil man, and the blood of many innocent people's blood is on his hand. But also, I'm very worried who's going to replace him. I am concerned for the extent of this war, how many more innocent lives going to be lost.
Mitra Freer said it was healing to gather with other Iranians and commemorate the sacrifice of protesters who risked their lives for freedom. But with the start of the U.S. and Israel's war with Iran 48 hours prior, she was transported back to her experience living through the 1979 revolution and the Iran-Iraq war of the 1980s.
I've been through a revolution and a war, and all this memory all came back, and I have a first-hand experience what my people going through. So it's been tough. How I process it is it's hard to connect with my family back home right now because the internet is down right now. So I've been able to talk to some of them briefly because the connection gets disconnected, but it's very hard.
Every new headline brings an overwhelming, conflicting mix of emotions, says dancer Parmita Ziai.
We've all been waiting for some kind of relief to happen, and through the death of the Supreme Leader, for a moment we all celebrated, and I never thought I would see that happen, and so it was a moment of relief, and at the same time it's like we all hold many emotions at the same time. We are all worried about our families, and we have been, but it's just really, really hard to know what's going to happen.
And she says she's frustrated that, once again, Iranian people are living with the consequences of decisions that are not in their control.
That story from KUOW's Libby Denkman. Next time on Seattle Now, the #1 boys high school basketball player in the U.S. plays here in Seattle. He got recruited. Ty Stokes was playing football in California just 6 months ago.
In the middle of the academic year, he shocks the world by saying, "I'm going to Rainier Beach." This is pretty mind-blowing because normally a talent of this caliber would be at a basketball academy, a private school, but Stokes chose public school here in Seattle.
Hear more about how high school sports are changing Wednesday morning. That's all for today from the KUOW Newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is Andy Hurst, and I'm Paige Browning. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. See ya.